of Peach's barn, and the problem that we're having is where to move the poop. And we've discussed this before. We need to move this retaining wall over here so that we can go to this side of that white pipe. That white pipe is an air vent for our septic or our leach field, and so that needs to stay there at that height and be unobstructed in any way, shape, or form. And then because the greenhouses are here, this is not wide enough of a path for the tractor to get through. So we have to move this wall just a little bit so we can go like this. And then the hope and dream is in this area, get it all cleaned up, and then the compost is gonna go there. So the cow compost can go there, the garden compost, the chicken compost, and that's the most central location. So that's what we're working on. Do it because we gotta put the trim on here. Just lick her. We got the pen completely clean. Erin's got the gate for me. We're gonna head to the house. It is super hot out, and then we are gonna worry about finishing the rest of this barn this week. Well, we are out here in the garden. I am so excited. This is the first year that the weather has been so fantastic that we are going to succession plant, which means we already have some things ready to harvest, and we have enough time left in the growing season that we can replant those things. My garden is just bursting with life. I am absolutely in awe, in shock. A lot of these things last year, because of the rain and the weather, only got to the size they're at now, and we are at July 1st. So that is fantastic. We still have all of July and all of August for things like potatoes and some of the stuff that gets really big. And so I thought really quick, take you through a walk, and I am going to show you what is coming alive, and we are immediately going to get after this row for sure, and probably the row behind it, because the radishes are done and the spinach is literally barely gotten to the point of harvest and it's starting to bolt. So I'll show you what all that means. So here's my supplies behind me. I just have a bucket. Everything I throw in there is going to go to the chickens. And then I have this for the vegetables that we're actually harvesting today. And the first row is radishes. So I've actually come out here a couple of times and already thinned the radishes, but at this point, the radishes are ready to just be harvested and start over. We don't like radish greens at our house. And so anytime I don't have to feed the chickens commercial food, I can feed them for free out of the garden. I'm definitely gonna take the opportunity to do that. And as I go through here, all of it, the chickens will eat the grass, they'll eat the clover, they'll eat any of this that's going on. And then if it really is a tiny little radish, I'll leave it, because like I said, I've already thinned a couple of times through here. And now we're ready to just harvest away. Look at these. Do you see that? That is good soil health. Look at the length of those roots are really stretched down, and the soil just kind of adheres to those fine little hairs because the soil is so healthy. Let's go through here. All right, so right here we've pulled all of these radishes. These I have super thinned because what's left in there, if you can see, there's no big radishes. They just needed a little more space. Back here we have the beets. The beets are doing amazing. And so I thinned. And then weeded the rest of this. So of course there's weeds growing. And now look at my spinach. Someday I'm going to grow the most fantastic spinach. Here's what happens here in Alaska. We have nearly 24 hours of daylight, and things like spinach actually need darkness. And so it gets to the point we're ready, just ready to harvest, and there it goes. It's bolting. So it's making these little flowers or seeds. Seeds are flowers, those sort of things. Some of the spinach did really well. And now I want to document the ones that bolt easily. However, these two varieties didn't. So this one looks amazing. No bolting. It's a weed. And so we're gonna get all this harvested. These did okay. This one did good. This one did good. So we're gonna harvest those and just do the best we can with the spinaches. I did have the high hopes, which are still alive and well, that we are going to freeze a bunch of the spinach and have it throughout the year, because it's not something that I mind cooked down. However, it is one of my favorite things fresh. So I'm just gonna start harvesting spinach now. Okay, we're gonna take and dump this to the chickens really quick. Hi, friends. They will totally take care of that in a matter of minutes. Look at them go. All right, I brought in the first batch, which is beautiful spinach. Get my hands are filthy. And this I want to use for fresh eating. The spinaches that kind of are starting to bolt and go to seed, we're gonna try and salvage those, but I don't want to mix them in. Already spilling. And so I'm gonna get all this rinsed up and set out to dry so that it's not out there in the sun wilting. I grabbed the 2 labels for the spinach and the radish that are doing fantastic, because I want to make sure I grab the right seeds when we go back out there. We'll just reseed everything, but really quick, gonna rinse off this spinach and get it drying. Anything kind of like that gets tossed to the chickens. Now we're off for round 2. Let's get back to the garden. Let me get you in here and show you, when they start bolting, there really isn't much food. So there's these 2 leaves, a real hollow stem. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves, and it just shot up in, created this flower. Well, most of that is totally unusable, and it's just sucking up. So we come along, we grab a hold, and just cut everything out. So, and then the other thing I'm doing in this video that you can see is I then just come along, and yesterday in the greenhouse I found 2 itty bitty baby snails. So the snails are coming back out. So we're grabbing any of the greens and maybe some of the straw that are just left on the ground, and we're cleaning up because we don't want to give home or refuge to the snails. They would be so destructive if in the garden. And so then I come through and I just break up the soil a little, dust it, move it around with my hands, and then pull any weeds within this bed. And I reach up and I look under here where we have all of the beets are growing there, and the celery's going here. And so I really just want to make sure right there, that was growing at the base of the celery. And so I look for any grass or weeds, because celery is one of the last things that we will harvest out of the garden. And that was the whole point. The design is this is an early harvest, that is a late harvest, and then everything in the centers of the beds were grown from seed, and then the edges were planted out. And so it kind of makes a little bit of room here in the garden bed. So we'll keep harvesting and try to preserve as much of the spinach as we can. And then the other thing is I actually labeled everything in the garden this year. And so I'm going through and I'm writing bolt or no bolt on each one of the different kinds of spinach so that I know what moving forward is really good in my area and what is not so much. But the only way of knowing is to plant a whole bunch of different kinds of spinach, see how each one of them reacted, and that goes for everything that has the potential of bolting like that. Plant a couple of different varieties and then see what does and doesn't bolt on you if you're in Alaska, of course. And ours is basically the amount of sunlight that these things get. You can put shade structures over them. I just don't have the means for that right now. I do have this shade cloth, but I would have to buy like the PVC and things like that. So that's just not in the cards this year. And if maybe one of these varieties were my favorite, which I don't actually know that one of them would be, so it's no big deal. But say it was a favorite variety or something I really wanted to grow, it is worth the investment of that shade cloth, and we could do that in the future. All right, so this row, look at that, totally different now. All of the spinach has been pulled, and then I have super weeded right here. All I do is, you see in the video, I pull back the straw and I pull the little grass or weeds from the root, and then I just push the straw back on top of it because we always want something growing or covering our soil. And then if you look really close, I actually left all of the roots in the ground. I pulled the tags that I had labeled of whether they bolted or didn't bolt. Now, some of the spinach will just grow back and we will have a second harvest that way. The other way is I'm going to plant some more spinach, but first I need to deal with what we pulled out of the ground, and then we can worry about planting tomorrow. And I did just give it a nice clean rake. Everything looks great. We got one whole row done today. We have a row to do tomorrow. On my way back through, I did weed, kind of the, not weed, I thinned that center row right there of turnips. They are overcrowding, and so I just went ahead and thinned those out. There's not enough. Sorry about that plane. What I was saying is there wasn't enough there on the root or of the turnip that you could harvest it, and so again, not a green that we really like, enjoy, or prefer. And because we have so much lettuce and spinach to eat, which we really do love and prefer, we just tossed all of that to the chickens. But let me just show you, by the time I got this weeded, you can see it is starting to wilt. And so that is why I've done it kind of in phases today. And let's get this giant bowl in, and we are going to blanch and freeze a bunch of the spinach. All right, we're gonna make dinner. I'm gonna get a little bit of garlic butter going. We're gonna have these steaks on the grill. There's just a little bit of rancher steak rub and Worcestershire sauce on them. And then we're gonna use some garlic butter. Just a couple cloves of garlic into like maybe a half a stick, if that, of butter. I'm going to make a really beautiful fruit and spinach salad. I ran to the garden and got these green onions. Aren't they beautiful? We grew those from seed, but I need to get the dirt off of them real quick. All right, get down here. For the dressing, I wanted something super simple that I can just pop in the fridge afterwards and eat a couple more spinach salads throughout the rest of the week and the holiday weekend coming up. So I'm gonna put a little dice on these onions. Okay. And that goes in the dressing. Okay, so double the amount of oil to vinegar. So we're gonna fill this about, yay. This is avocado oil. And then I have some balsamic vinegar that we used on the sandwiches last week. So right about there. Okay, and instead of using like maple syrup or honey or something like that, Destiny's dad makes the best blueberry jam. And we're gonna use this as the sweetener and just amp up the fruit. Okay, so we're gonna, there we go. And then these are from wild Alaska blueberries. I can't wait to go blueberry picking. And lastly, we're gonna put a little mustard in there. And then salt and pepper, of course. All right, we're just gonna use a mason jar, pop a lid on so we can give it a good shake so we can taste it. And then I can store it in this mason jar for about a week. All right, let's taste test, see if it needs more salt and pepper. That is so good. And it is not super sweet, even though you would think it is. All right, set that aside. Let's build this out. I'm gonna go ahead and chop the greens so we're not wasting them. All right, then we're also doing strawberries. Let's get a good clean on those. To the strawberry and the onion chops, my mom brought me some blueberries. They went to Costco and they grabbed a little bit of fresh fruit. So we'll throw a few blueberries in there, mimicking the flavor that is in the dressing, as well as, I don't have any like almonds or pecans, but I do have some candied cashews. A handful of those. That's gonna add the crunch. And then we're gonna top it with a little bit of feta cheese. Let me clean up. I'm gonna get the steaks on the grill, then we'll finish putting together the salad. All right, hot grill. All right, the spinach salad. So I'm going to just kind of trim off some of the ends. That, and then give it like a rough chop so that it's simple to get into your mouth. All right, so we have our 2 spinach salads. They're absolutely main dish, the star of the show. I'm just gonna divide the toppings. One for you, one for me. And a little crumbly feta cheese. It all. But I think it needs like the little bit of bite with all the sweetness. And that's why it also thinks it needed the onions. Okay, let's grab a little piece out. We're gonna crumble this up. Okay, a whole bunch of my kids just showed up. So we have our beautiful salad with the dressing. I murdered some steaks, but we did throw some sourdough bread on the grill. And then I'll go in the garlic butter. So I'm gonna go enjoy some time with my family, and I will pick this back up tomorrow morning. Most unfortunately, the weather doesn't look like it's gonna hold up for me to get straight into the garden this morning. And so we're gonna process all of yesterday's spinach. We're gonna get that blanched and frozen. But I thought before I got going on that, I would share with you my favorite. I found this. I'll link the YouTube video where I got it, but I want to show you what has become my favorite einkorn sourdough bread that we try and make on about a weekly basis. So the first thing we gotta do is go grind some fresh einkorn. I got a great big bowl of einkorn, fresh ground right here. Any that's left over, you can just stick in a bag or a mason jar or something like that, and just use it for the next couple of weeks. So we have 720 grams of water. All right, adding to our 720 grams of water, we want 200 grams of 100% hydration active sourdough starter. Is bubbly and smells delicious. So 200 grams. All right. See that? Okay. So sourdough is pretty simple. A bread is going to be flour, salt, sourdough, and water. It's really not going to be a lot else. Then we're going to set that aside. We're going to get the bowl that we're going to mix it up in. We're going to zero that bowl out. We're going to do 850 grams of a good organic flour. So it's about 5.5 cups, but that flour, I just opened the bag this morning and it is pretty packed in there. And so that's why we measure in any unit measurement as opposed to the actual cups. So as far as the einkorn goes, we are going to be using, you could also use like spelt or some other kind of wheat, 150 grams of this. Now this, because I just ground it, is super light and fluffy. So that's 130, that's 1 cup, 150, okay? And then to this, we are gonna add 20 grams of salt. I got this Redmond's kosher salt. 60, 62, 70. All right. And that's our 2 ingredients. We're gonna just bring together a soggy dough. So I'm gonna just start out with any kind of spatula. I wish I had one of those beautiful dough hooks, but that's all right. I just use these spatulas. They work great. Okay, it is a fairly sticky dough, and I need to tell you something. This is the one main thing I learned about einkorn and other wheats that you're not used to working with. They take a little while to absorb the moisture and become where you can just work with them. And so we're just gonna let this soggy dough go for about 30 minutes. We're gonna put a towel over it and keep it covered, and I will bring you back. So I have this here. This is one of our honey buckets that we used all of the honey up, that good Canadian honey, and then I washed it, and this is a 1 gallon food grade bucket. So I'm gonna reuse it, and it's gonna be super helpful to just put this in the pantry and have some einkorn ground whenever I'm ready to use it. I think blanching and freezing is the easiest way to preserve, but not only that, it's one of my favorite. And here is why. I really prefer my vegetables as far as storage goes, depending on the vegetable, of course, to be just out of the freezer. So when it comes to, say, green beans or peas or something like that, frozen is my favorite. And frozen spinach, I think, is far superior to canned spinach. And that's just me and my household and how we like to do things. So last night what I did is I popped all of the spinach in a cooler because there is so much of it, it would not go in my refrigerator. And I put some ice in the bottom and the top, and then have the spinach rolled in the towels, and I'll start grabbing spinach. So this first towel is a really lovely, more like a baby spinach, and it really didn't bolt. And we ate this for last night's dinner. It is pretty fantastic. And then I gave a bag of it to my mom and a bag of it to Caleb and Destiny. And this is all that is left. And so what I'm gonna do with this one is pop it in a freezer bag or a Ziploc bag. I'm gonna get this in the refrigerator, and I'm going to use this for fresh eating the rest of this week. And because if I chose to cook some of this, a little bit of bacon fat and some onion and maybe a little bit of vinegar, that would be a wonderful side dish. And then I can cook it down. I could throw it in a smoothie, or I can certainly just make spinach salad, which is one of my absolute favorite ways to get spinach in the diet. So there is just one bag of spinach to go in the fridge. And sadly, you spend all that time growing it, and fresh eating is only about a week because of the way things bolt up here. And so I'm just grateful to have what we have for fresh eating. Now this big one, I'm literally having to move things because I have salted water coming to a boil over here. It's just starting to get the bubbles on the side of the pan. I pre-did that before recording. You fill up a pan with water, you put a dash of salt in there, and you let it come up to boil. Okay, so this is the spinach that started to bolt, but it's still going to be just fine. I think I'm gonna take off some of the stems. But listen how crunchy it still is. And I did try it. It isn't bitter yet or overly bitter, that when you cook it and you throw it in something like a soup or a stew. But if we had let this actually flour or go any further, it isn't useful. You can't really cook or save that. It is so bitter at that point. So any real big stems is not what we want to take up space preserving. So pull those off and put them in the chicken bowl. The chickens will eat those. And the wildest part is of that whole row that's about 30 foot long, I believe, is only 2 of them didn't bolt. And this is the, all of the bolted grow so quick and so fast, and that it just doesn't mature. So the leaves like this is what was sticking out of the ground, and so it all looked healthy and full, whereas reality, it was just mostly stem. So you don't get nearly as much, like look at that, as much food off of the plant as you would if it didn't. All right, I think I did a pretty good job of cleaning it up. It's mostly just the big spinach leaves. There's a couple of little things like that in there. But all in all, we did all right. Most of this, the pot is big enough, I can get it into the pot. We're gonna go into boiling water for 1 to 3 minutes, but it can be as little as 30 seconds. Okay, we're gonna go straight from the boiling water into our bowl of ice water. I did salt the ice water just a little bit because I think it makes it colder. I'm trying to drain out quite a bit of the liquid, only because the spinach can hold so much liquid in it that it'll make the and that giant towel of spinach made this tiny amount. Now, using a towel, I just had the spinach wrapped in here yesterday, and then these towels, I try not to use like bleach or laundry soap. I just try before canning or preserving season to just run them through the wash. So the spinach is cooled down. I'm going to honestly wring it out and then put it on this towel. And now all that spinach has turned into this. I'm just going to try and roll it and get as much moisture out. You would not do this with other vegetables. Do not do this with your green beans and peas. Spinach just has so much water in it, and then after blanching it, it continues to collect water. And while the first batch is drying, I'm just gonna take a quick peek through here. This was a much better batch, a whole lot less stems than the last one. This might need 2 batches. While the spinach is drying, we are gonna do our first mix. So with wet fingers, let me show you. So this is what the dough looks like about 30 minutes later. You can see kind of like some dry and then some moist areas. So what we're gonna do is really just pull it all back in together. Now immediately this already has a different look and a different texture than it did going in. And we're gonna let it rest another 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so we have been drying the spinach, and now we're gonna put it on the cutting board, and we're going to do something called flash frozen. And what I wanna do is 1 cup measurements. I'm going to put them on this baking sheet, throw it in the deep freeze, and then tomorrow or whenever, once it is frozen through, I am gonna put a little chop on it because this one wasn't perfectly just leaves, but that's okay. It smells amazing. I love the smell of fresh spinach. Okay, so what we're gonna do is take our 1 cup measure, and these little pucks are gonna be perfect to throw in like a quiche, a soup, a stew. We still wanna get more water out. Okay, so that 1 little ball. Isn't that crazy? Look at that. There we have it, friends. We ended up with only 8, right around 8 cups of spinach processed down, and then this doesn't take up much freezer room at all. It's obviously not a year's worth of spinach, and that is always our goal, is can we grow a year's worth of all the things? This would be like one soup for 8 weeks, something like that. And then if you put in the smoothies or whatever, and then maybe you just wanted the spinach, cooked spinach as a side dish, whatever the case is, it's definitely not enough for a family our size for a whole year. And you can see from this, almost a 30-foot row of spinach made 8 cups. You can begin to understand how difficult it really is for someone to grow a year's worth of anything, let alone something like this that condenses down. Certainly simple to grow a year's worth of potatoes or garlic or onions or something like that, that just don't take up that massive amount of space. And also when you go to eat it, you're not eating a huge amount of it. When you're eating garlic, you're eating a few cloves, maybe even a head, but it's this big, right? Whereas the spinach takes up so much square footage to grow. Nonetheless, it smells amazing. We have some for fresh eating, and we're going to replant in hopes of getting a second, maybe even a third harvest of spinach up here in Alaska. So I may end up doing some shade cloth or some other things to protect it, to try and prevent some bolting, but who knows? We'll just give it our best shot again. So this is gonna pop in the freezer and then just store it however you want in your favorite storage method, whether that's a Ziploc bag or you have a sealer. Whatever the case is, you can do them individually. I'm gonna pop them all in one bag so I can open a sealed bag, pull out what I want, and then just seal it back up, throw it in the freezer, and all the spinach will be in one area. All right, it's been 30 minutes, and before I go outside, because I know I'll be trapped and the sun has finally came out, we're dipping our hands in water, and we are going to do our first actual stretch and fold. So what we do is we take it and scoop the belly until one of the sides comes loose. Let that go gently. Turn it around, same direction, the other side. Let that go gently. Now, we're looking at a round dough ball and a round bowl and pretending it has 4 sides, right? Okay. And one more. All right, ladies. Now she's starting to build structure. We're gonna leave her alone. We're gonna go outside 60 to 90 minutes. I'm notorious for getting in the garden and forgetting. Thus, we're gonna set a timer. We'll be back in 60 to 90 minutes. But I thought in the meantime, I would give you the promised garden tour. How are we doing? How is everything looking? Let's go do that right now. So it's super windy over here, and so I'm just gonna give you, kind of show you just a little bit of how these pots are doing. And begin over here, and then you tell me if the plants I planted with my grandma are supposed to look like that, or are they gonna be fine? The green looks good. The lilies obviously have died off, but one of them is blooming new ones. I don't know. Let's take a look. On a full tour. These are the pots. I got these like buy one get one half off. The chickens had destroyed everything in these pots, but look at that one. Just in time for the 4th of July. It is popping out. This I thought was fantastic. Look at these. Now these, I had never seen a geranium that like spreads out like that. Look at, so beautiful. Same back there. Part of the reason the chickens were penned up, and I don't know if I actually showed you guys, they would eat the rhubarb. They would not let it bloom at all. I kept trying to cover it back up with straw and protect it, and I thought, they've killed it. They've absolutely killed the rhubarb. And look at the size of it now that the chickens can't get to it. There may be a couple stalks that are big enough for us to harvest, But originally I said I wouldn't harvest anything off of them because the leaves need to die back in the fall and protect the root system. And then that's kind of the insulation up here in Alaska that protects the rhubarb. But I may be able to harvest enough for Cody's Thanksgiving pie and then leave the rest and then just move forward with it. In an earlier video, we did all of the chicken coop stuff together. The yellow, look at how big it is. These are the pots. Pretty much everything you see I planted from seed. This is full of forget-me-nots. It's one of the hose holders. And then it has like this little climbing thing. And then look at here. They're so bright. The chickens, the baby chicks got a hold of that one. And I didn't remember that I had not actually poked holes in it because when they're in the basement, I don't want the water running everywhere. So I poked some holes in it. It allowed a bunch of the water to come out. And it's starting to bounce back, but it looks terrible. So what I had added to the outside of the garden after the first garden video is, look, these are the double pots. So what I've done is line two sides of the fence on the outside with pots and the hanging baskets because I didn't like them in the greenhouses. But when you walk along someday, if you can just imagine, this will be really nice gravel. Right now it's road base and dirt, and we keep stirring everything up and trying to get everything done. The chickens are having a fight. But I do think it kind of borders the garden really well. And then everything, with the exception of some of the trees that someone gave us for free, and a couple of them look like they're gonna make it, and everything else I did from seed. So now inside the garden, one of the biggest changes, I got some wood chips. These are going to be permanent walkways this one, and then the one that leads back to where the raspberry bushes are. And along that right there is the potatoes. They are huge. These are the special potatoes from the neighbor. And then this little potato down here is the potatoes from my potato seed. But what we're looking for is some flowers. So it's starting to flower, which means in the potato world, everything that's underneath is starting to develop the actual potatoes. So they're starting to grow. We're getting flowers. Check out the garlic. It is monstrous and it's starting to send out. These are hardneck varieties. So it is sending out the seed pod right here. So as soon as that gets a curl to it, we're gonna come along and snip all of these off. Oh, just like this. So these are called garlic scapes. And I think next week I will go ahead and just cut all the garlic scapes out. And you can make like a pesto with them. You can grind them up. You can certainly saute them. They're going to give that mild garlic flavor. But we want all of the energy going to producing the bulb of garlic. But the garlic is like over waist high at this point. Some green onion there, some red onion we planted. This size of these. And you can certainly tell by looking at it that it is several different kinds of garlic in here, and we are just figuring out what grows the best, what's our favorite, and I will have to go back to the video and reference it and decide what we're gonna order more of. But isn't that fantastic? That's over 30 foot. That's like 35 foot of garlic. And it's 1, 2, 3, 6 rows of cloves. All right, back over there in that corner are the trial onions. Those are onions that I grew last year, and they were like little bitty balls. And so I planted them to see what would happen, to see if I could get a big onion off of it. Is it really this 2-year process? If it is a 2-year process, am I capable of growing an onion from seed, pull it the first year, store it over winter, and then replant it? Will I get a big onion? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but it's a great little experiment corner, as well as some shell peas. And then right behind me here is some of the sunflowers. They have really started to get big. So this is we're growing all of the squash 2 ways, some in the greenhouse and some outside. And it's been a bounce back and forth. Certainly what is inside of the greenhouse had taken off like super, super quickly. However, I have bigger developed squash or zucchinis or that sort of thing out here than I do in the greenhouse. So we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. But this is the kale and the collards. So the kale will harvest, and then collards get huge before you harvest them. But each of those individuals, so that's a little more spaced out. And then we have the kale here. This is a weed. We'll take that guy out. But look, we're actually getting zucchinis. Oh. Oh, there's a yellow one. And then the green onions, like last night's dinner, I just started harvesting on the end. So we're going to try and work through these green onions and then get to the next one. But these are done. For those of you that don't know, this is only my 3rd year gardening ever, growing anything my whole life. And so it has been a huge advance and very, very quickly the learning process. But each of the zucchinis and stuff that are actually growing here are more than I ever grew last year, because I started them outside, which is what they say. Oh, they don't like being transplanted. They don't like this. You can't do that here in Alaska. Turns out you have to start these from seed indoors and then transplant them, whether it's a greenhouse or outside. We just don't have enough length in warm soil and days to get them to take off. So moving over here, this is the cauliflower, broccoli, kohlrabi, and then chaos carrots. So the carrots are growing down and underneath, and then the broccoli and the cauliflower, they all kind of shade, but these are carrots down under here all throughout. Cauliflower's on that side, broccoli's on this side, and then anything on the outsides of those are kohlrabi. But I have one broccoli head already. Let me see if I can't find it. Oh, you know what this is? This is either a ground cherry or a tomatillo, and I don't know how. Okay, somehow the seed got mixed in and it got planted outside, and so I've left it because, hey, another great experiment. We have all the tomatillos growing inside, and then we just have this one random one right outside here. These look like Brussels sprouts. I might have shoved those in too. There we go. Look at one broccoli. But that's great. I hope these are Brussels sprouts because they are. I can see them starting to grow down there. Okay, good, because I don't love that much kohlrabi. How did we mix that up though is what I'm beginning to wonder. This is certainly a kohlrabi. You can see it starting to develop down there. And then the flowers on the end. Starting to flower. See? Carrots. Now this is a weed. This is actually fireweed. All right, so this row is what I planned on. I'm gonna grab some salads out of here for dinner tonight. But yeah, it's really, really beautiful. Look at this. This is all salad green. Something has gotten a hold of it. But whatever's eating this salad green is not then attacking the cabbage. So I may sacrifice this in hopes that it doesn't get on or near the cabbages. So this is all cabbages with different salads. So cabbage is green, 2 together, and then we'll come through and thin those out. This is a salad mix. Isn't that beautiful? That's what I'm pulling today, as well as some of this. Look at that. Okay, that's a weed. I want to eat that. And then purple cabbage. So they didn't do as good. They didn't do as good from seed as the green ones this year. And then the green ones are all labeled on their way down. But yeah, we need to eat a bunch more. And that's arugula. Look at this sunflower row. I think it's gonna be all of what I hoped it would be, which is like a giant wall that blocks this white box. But look at some of them. They're so big. My red, white, blue, and yellow hose bucket right here at the end. Doing good. It's happy. So yesterday, this row next to the cabbage, this side, because I worked over here, I went through and I just pulled all of the middle out of the turnips. And so there's parsnips, rutabaga, and turnips on this outside row here. And I just went through and thinned the side. Now when I pull some lettuce, we replant, all of that fun stuff, because the lettuce is going to bolt, the arugula is going to bolt. I've already ate a bunch of the arugula and it just kept growing. So I did thin these. They're obviously going to have to be thinned again. Let me show you why. So these didn't grow last year at all. So these are rutabaga. So these are parsnips, I believe. And look, so what we have to do is come through and just pull one of them and allow the others around it to grow. But I seeded this way too thick because I didn't hardly get enough last year, and I thought, oh, I'll just seed it thicker this year. And then all of them decided that, hey, it was perfect growing conditions. We're all gonna sprout. So you learn as you go, I guess, certainly learn as you go. And so I've started thinning these, and then they're so small, you can't really eat them. But look at, the greens are fantastic. If you wanted, you could eat those, but I just fed it all to the chickens yesterday. And then this over here is the row we worked on yesterday. Okay, I didn't get one radish that I could harvest last year, and that's okay because I still had some pickled radishes from the summer before. But look, I grew that. I grew that from seed, girls. Look at that. Look at those. Can you believe that? Some are smaller, they're different. Okay, so this is a different kind of radish, and they just aren't ready. These are a white icicle, and then this is a different kind, and then you have the beets behind it. I might have said radish when I meant beets. This is like an orange beet. Look at it, yellow and orange, but they're growing. I'm shocked. That's a huge, I think a huge accomplishment, that we're gonna get zucchinis and squash, we're gonna get beets, we got spinach that we actually processed, whereas all the spinach bolted last year before I knew what to do because I was waiting on the big fat spinach leaves. We lost all of it, like past the point of we could salvage some. So, I mean, to me, it's like, you look around and it is amazing the difference from one year to the next, what you can learn. So I totally encourage you, if you're new, whatever, get out there, throw some seeds in and find out what happened. Just learn that way. So many of you know I was having trouble keeping the little chickens in. We clipped their wings, we're fine. They got in here, they pulled the beans out. I need to replant those again. And then they really hammered on the Brussels sprouts, and the Brussels sprouts in this bed are half the size of the Brussels sprouts over there that I thought was kohlrabi. So we're gonna maybe get some Brussels sprouts even if we lost out here. But what this bed is artichokes on the ends. Now that would come back every year if we could figure out a way to overwinter it. Give me ideas. If you're in a zone 3 or anywhere near a zone 3 and you have a way of getting your artichokes to come back and grow, let me know. Just let me know. We're zone 3. So flowers, onions, supposed to be beans, scattered some carrot seeds in here. So that's what you see here. This is carrot. Supposed to be Brussels sprouts. Are super suffering. Thanks, because you can see here. This is all chicken damage. Then coming through here, more onions, the peas. The peas are starting to sprout. Onions, more artichoke, and more flowering cilantro. I need one more bit of help. And tell me if I did the right things. Okay, so we built the hydrangea bed, and then you saw earlier in the video, we were working with the cow stuff. Aaron brought some of these bigger rocks over here, and we're gonna build out this imaginary rock wall. Then we'll get some wood chips in here and some lower rocks, but we want the big ones on the corners that prevent the tractor in the wintertime from hitting and digging it up. So what I did is I deadheaded these, which I don't know if you're supposed to, but they had died back. And then these are new blooms. And look, this one's doing great. This one, not so much. Did I kill it? Did I transplant it wrong? What is wrong? These guys have lasted weeks. But look, I'm like brown leaves, but then I have some really healthy leaves back here. Same song and dance over here, but look, this is brand new. New growth. New growth down there. I don't know what to do with the dead leaves. And then one more. Okay, so that one I think might have gotten smashed against there. But look, we're gonna get new. I don't know. They were looking really, really bad. And so I added some fishy peats, which is a garden soil, an organic garden soil up here in Alaska, and some of the coconut coir mixed together. It's holding the moisture in a lot better. I, however, am not watering the lavender, and the lavender looks to be doing so much better than these cute little flowers. I just think they die back, or they bloom and, like, look, I think there's new blooms coming. So, anywho, I've never grown a hydrangea in my life. Can you please, please, please tell me what I'm doing wrong? I did use the right fertilizer, and I planted them according to how they say to plant them. What do I do with the dead leaves? Do I just let it be? Okay, I have something else I need you to help me figure out. I watched a whole garden answers video on it, and I have no answers. So, we are in the first greenhouse. Da, 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 da. This one is tomatoes down the middle, peppers and onions are along the outside. Something's attacking my peppers. Now, I've tried some neem oil. I've tried the whole milk thing. What is this? What is happening? And then these over here had like seeds. They had eggs underneath. Oh, see, there we have it. What is that? I killed it quickly, but what is happening here? See, they're laying eggs. What is it? I'm so frustrated I could cry. But I've yet to grow any peppers. So I know that it feels like a losing battle up here in Alaska, but the tomatoes are not being attacked by whatever it is. So they still seem fairly happy. Okay, we've moved into the second greenhouse. So things I've tried. Soapy water. Super hard washing the plants. I even take like my glove, my hand, and try to wipe off all of the eggs or whatever that is. Neem oil and milk. What is it? Is there a bug that I can order that would maybe kill or eat whatever that is? Please help me before I lose all of my peppers again. So, second greenhouse, tomatoes along this side. These are still in 1 gallon buckets because I don't have anything to put them in. I should at this point grab some soil because they're starting to suffer, but really, why are they still alive? So, look, we're starting to flower. That's beautiful. This is a bush. That's why these are not trellised up. So they'll just grow these little fat bushes. And then those are trellised. and they are huge. Okay. So just come through and just keep wrapping around. Just for reference, I am 5'8" tall. Look at that. Look at the height of these tomatillos. So I came through. Tomatillos don't really have hair like a tomato, and they don't, well, their system isn't anything like it, although they may be in the same sort of family. So what I do, let me see if I can get you in good. Okay, so I use the tomato clips and the string, and I just keep giving it support. And they are, look at that. Oh, oh, oh. What happy little plants. Holy buckets. Oh, that's a yellow squash that's in a hanging basket for no reason. That was all I had left. But the tomatillos, they are. So clearly we get more sun over here because they're all like looking this way, and then super tall in the back. Look at that. And then look at that. Oh my gosh. Look at this size. It's like a double. Those are males. Look at you. And then we do have peppers in the back. And onions. Look at these. Holy cow. So this is the other bug that I find in here. Oh, he flew off. Oh, see? Little. Now over here we have acorn squash, some different things. Now these vine, so check this out. That's just vining across my floor here. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Look. Oh my gosh. Look. Strawberries. They're all turning red. Update. The strawberry bed is fantastic. Whatever we did here is working really, really well. They're starting to turn color, and I'm not having weed pressure. Now, you see a couple of weeds poking through. I'll pull those. This looks almost like a strawberry, but it's not. Look at how rooted that was. That's a weed. Pull that sucker out. Yeah. So what are we discovering? We're discovering what will grow here in our zone, in our yard, in our little microclimate, and we just allow things to try and do what they're going to do. And so all of that is looking really, really good. All around here, we're looking good. So I gotta head in and work on the sourdough. Just washed my hands. We're gonna go ahead and wet them. And then this is going to be the second actual stretch and fold. Doing the same thing. See how that pulled from the side? See this, see how that one's still sucked down to the side over there. So stretching, folding it under. And now down there. Then turn this side to the back here. Or, whoops. All right, there we go. And the bowl just gets cleaner and cleaner. We're gonna let this go for another hour. Okay, we are going to do another stretch and fold. Okay. We're starting to get some bubbles, some action. Okay. And this time, after this stretch and fold, we're going to let the dough rest until it doubles in size. Look at that. She's doubled in size. So we're gonna pull it out of the bowl. And we are gonna divide it into 2 loaves. So kind of spread it out. Sticky. Okay, shaping it into that globule. So it should be a little bit drier, but that's okay. And let these rest for about 30 minutes. All right, we are now going to shape our dough. A little flour this time. Okay. So I'm going to use this parchment when I bake it, and so I'm going to do a little flour in the bottom, and then the bread dough into the parchment. And now both of these are gonna get covered, and they are gonna go in the refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours, and then we'll bake them off tomorrow, so overnight. This bread is for sure a long process in comparison to the quick ones, but it is totally worth it. So I'm gonna get these covered and put them in the fridge. Okay, so the next day, it hasn't been quite 24 hours. After recording yesterday and having dinner, we went down fishing, so we drove 4 hours away, fished for 4 hours and drove home. And so we all just got out of bed, and we are gonna get the bread going. So preheat the oven to 500 degrees. Let me double check. Correction, 425 degrees, and then get our empty Dutch ovens going in the oven. So while the oven preheats, we're gonna pull out the bread, and we're gonna let it start coming up to room temp. All right, so after you preheat the oven for about 15, 30, 25 minutes, whatever it takes, you'll actually pull out your Dutch ovens, and you'll see that the color of them has changed, and they've gotten really dark. And all we wanna do is, using scissors or a fancy knife, I just put a couple of slits in mine. like so. Let me get you down. Don't touch the pan. Lid off. Slide a little in. And then back in the oven for 25 minutes covered. All right, after 25 minutes, you take the lids off of the pans and you let them go for another 10 minutes. And then I immediately, as you can see right here, I just pull them out, and we have learned if you don't want the bottom to be really hard, you want it, it's a little bit pliable right there. You want that softness. It's still got this nice thick crust on it. You need to take them out of the pans immediately. If you want that really hard, crunchy bottom crust, leave them in the pans, but they do need to cool at least 45 minutes or longer. This has kind of become our everyday bread, and so we're not too terribly worried about it. I leave it out on the counter. It's completely cool. It is so beautiful. Let me show you how we cut it. Okay, so we have 2 loaves. One of them I'm just going to wrap up or throw in a bag. So you cut the loaf in half, actually. And look at that. You have some good air holes. It's a fairly dense bread because of the einkorn. And then there's 2 ways. You can continue slicing it like this, but we just turn it on the side and we slice the loaf this way. And that's the simplest way to slice sourdough bread. And there you have it. You can do it as thick or as thin as you want. This literally has, the einkorn comes through. It is a rich and nutty sourdough. It literally is the best loaf. And so we use this for everything. Breakfast, all of the different sandwiches. It doesn't matter, with dinner, whole 9 yards. It is our sourdough that is our favorite. I'll leave the lady's video in the description box. Excuse me, it's just too good to walk away. Anywho, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you stick around the channel for a little while, and we will see you in next week's video. But between now and then, I hope you are blessed, and I hope you find something to be grateful for. I hope you enjoy some really good family time over the holiday.